This is the third episode in my introduction trilogy where I answer one of the questions I get most often when I tell people I'm starting a podcast all about Wilsons. Welcome to the Cuz Wilson Show. This is where we discover people, places, and things named Wilson. This week's people category is the person who initiated my interest in doing research about Wilson. The places category this week is where you would observe places from this place named Wilson. The things category relates to the blizzard we just had last weekend. And now the answer to, Kenny, what made you decide to make a podcast about Wilsons? Well, it all started in the late 1980s when family photo Christmas cards became a popular thing. We called my 3-year-old son Court the Sport because his name is Cortland, and he liked to try out all kinds of sports. So I took him over to a local sporting goods retailer during the week where it wasn't busy, and I told the manager that my name was Wilson, and I asked if I could gather some Wilson sporting goods products and put them over in the corner, place my son in the middle of it, and take a photo for our family Christmas card this year. The manager said, sure, that's a cool idea. The photo that I took is on our website at cuzwilson.com, and it's on the menu link about, kind of like about us. Come to think about it, just a few weeks ago at Christmas time, I played golf with my son. But now he's 39 years old. Well, he tells people he's 30 through, just because he's almost through with his 30s. Well, ever since we took that photo, I have got hooked on photography, and I got hooked on researching the name Wilson, the history of the name Wilson, and the current events with people named Wilson. It's just become a thing I do. Well, that's why I started this podcast, and I asked my son if I could interview him for this episode because he was the initial inspiration for getting to where we are today. I love bragging about my son because he was the state champion in Taekwondo when he was young, and he's also a combat Army vet. But we'll just skip to today. A lot of people from the ages of 18 to 34 listen to podcasts these days, and there are a lot of weddings in this demographic. So today's guest host is a destination wedding photographer who has over 35 international wedding photography awards. So please join me in welcoming Cortland Wilson. Hello, Cuz.
Hey, Cuz.
Today, Cortland and I are going to call each other's Cuz for this show. You know, Cuz for cousin. But he's actually my favorite son. So today I'll call him Cuz instead of son.
Well, that's awesome. You know, you're my favorite dad.
Oh, that's cool. And since Cortland is my only child, technically, he's my least favorite son too.
Well, then fine. Two can play that game. Technically, you're my least favorite father. So,
okay, you know what? I'm a proud papa, and I could brag about him all day long. But I really want people to actually listen to the next episode. So I put his bio and some samples of his wedding photography, and I have his links to his website and his socials all over in our show notes on cuzwilson.com. So, Cuz, tell us about your wedding photography. Then you can help me with the rest of the show.
All right. Sounds good. No problem.
What is the difference between destination wedding photographer and just a wedding photographer?
Yeah, good question. So it just means that there's a destination involved that's outside of your local area. I'm in Northern California, about 45 minutes from Lake Tahoe to the Bay Area, Napa, and all around. So that's Northern California. Beautiful country, lots of cool redwoods. We got snow, we got beaches, we got wine, we got it all. But destination wedding could also apply for a different state. Like if I was going to Oregon or Florida, or wherever, anywhere in the greater US, that would still qualify for destination wedding. But what really drives me is international travel. I love to go to different countries and experience different cultures. And so when I say destination wedding photographer, I'm really appealing to those couples who also get passionate about travel and want to have an international destination wedding.
What about, could they do a hybrid where they're wedding is going to be in another country, but the whole family can't get there.
Yeah, that's becoming more common now. One option couples will do is they'll elope or have a very, very small wedding, like 10 people or smaller, elope in like some crazy destination, let's say Iceland.
Cool.
But grandma can't fly to Iceland and go on a volcano and get the photos. Not really her bread and butter per se. Then they'll go back stateside and have a more formal reception / celebration with 100+ people. So family members from the States can all gather and celebrate with a couple. But typically when that happens, there's not really a ceremony per se. It's just more of a reception celebration.
What about engagement photos? How does that work?
So a lot of packages come with engagement sessions built into them. Basically, an engagement session is a photo session with just the photographer and the couple. And we basically do photos in an epic location or do an activity that means something to them. That's kind of my approach. I want to highlight my couple's passions. If they're passionate about paddleboarding, we'll do paddleboarding. I've done paintball ranges, shooting range, ice fishing, skiing. It really just doesn't matter. But for destination weddings, you're a little more limited in your choices of what to do for an activity. So I like to do it either the day before or after session is what I call it for a destination wedding, because oftentimes there'll be a rehearsal dinner the day before the actual wedding where all the VIPs and family members are there present. And some couples want that photograph because there's different speeches or activities throughout that dinner. And then oftentimes there's a party following the dinner. But if they don't want that, they also have the option to do a day after session, which means they can get back in their wedding attire if they want and take epic photos somewhere else besides where the ceremony took place. Or we can switch it up and do a few different outfits elsewhere. That's kind of like the day after session.
That's cool. There's all kinds of options.
It's the sky's the limit. Yeah.
I really like the couple that are rappelling off the side of a cliff.
Yeah.
Tell me about that one. I'm going to have that one on our website. People have to see that one.
This couple's rappelling off the side of a cliff, but they're in nicer clothes, like not necessarily in a suit, but basically everything but the jacket. And she's in this gorgeous red gown hoisted in the air, and he's upside down, giving her kind of like that epic Spider-Man kiss back in the early 2000s. Spider-Man, very, very iconic kiss upside down. I wasn't expecting to do it, but when I saw them up there, I was like, hey, flip upside down, give her a kiss, and boom. It was really fun. But yeah, that they're passionate about rock climbing. Oftentimes these couples, they don't know what to do when a camera's in front of their face. So my way to ease them in and get comfortable being photographed is to literally just pick something they're passionate about. That way the photos mean more, they resonate with more, they don't have like a mask, they can let loose and be themselves. And ultimately that's what shows best out in the photographs is who they are authentically.
Well, that covers our section about people category. Now let's go to the places category.
All right. Yeah.
There's even a town in Virginia called Mouth of Wilson.
Mouth of Wilson.
No, it wasn't named after your mother-in-law. There's also a funny place in Germany called Grab William Wilson.
Grab. I think it's pronounced grob or grab. Probably not grab.
Okay, that makes more sense. Well, I've heard that Prague is a beautiful place to have a wedding. It's pretty close to there, isn't it?
Yeah, it borders Germany to the east, and I've been there a few times. It's a beautiful city, amazing architecture. Still standing because Hitler wanted to retire there and kind of spared the city from being bombed during the war. But it's the city of 100 towers, and it's definitely worth checking out. Beautiful spot.
I bet Czechoslovakia is a great place to have a wedding.
No, they split that country into the Czech Republic and Slovakia, or officially the Slovak Republic.
Oh, okay. Well, do they have a sign there in Slovakia that says no Czechs accepted here?
No, I think they took a poll and nobody wanted to say that.
How? Did you take a photo with your Cameroon?
Yep, I can prove it.
I don't believe you.
You want to hear Samoa?
Norway. I think we're finished.
Okay. So many countries, so many puns.
Before we continue with the places category, there's a page on our website that I want you to help me with. In our first episode, I told you about the Cuz Picks page, and on our second episode, the Cuz Crunch page. So this week, I want to introduce you to the Places page. If you go to cuzwilson.com and you click on the More button up at the top right in the menu, scroll down and choose Places. This is a page where I want people to share their photos of places they've been named Wilson, or has Wilson on the sign at least. Okay, let's continue with the places category. Since Cortland now lives in California, and he also looks through a glass lens in beautiful places, I found the perfect place named Wilson, and I did some research and gathered up some information so Larry and Mary from Notebook LM can give you the lowdown.
You know, sometimes it's not a person or a single discovery that changes everything. Sometimes it's a place. Today, we're talking about one of those places, a legendary mountaintop that time and time again completely rewrote our map of the universe. That quote you just saw, that's Edwin Hubble grappling with a choice that would define modern astronomy. And the data forcing that choice, it all came from one single spot on our planet, the Mount Wilson Observatory. So let's meet our main character, shall we? It's a mountain, perched almost 6,000 feet above Los Angeles, high above all that city haze, giving it this crystal clear view of the sky. It was founded way back in 1904 by the visionary George Ellery Hale. Now, his first idea was to study the sun, but oh man, this mountain's destiny was so much bigger than that. And this place hit the ground running. I mean, even before the discoveries that made it famous, Mount Wilson was a hub of incredible science. First, they built the 60-inch telescope, then came the absolute behemoth, the 100-inch Hooker telescope, which was the biggest in the world for 3 decades. And just for good measure, a guy named Albert Michelson showed up and performed one of the most beautiful experiments ever, nailing down the exact speed of light. So you can see, the stage was already being set for something truly revolutionary. Okay, so now let's set the scene. The year is 1919, and onto this stage walks a young astronomer named Edwin Hubble. And wouldn't you know it, the observatory's brand new, top-of-the-line instrument was waiting just for him. I mean, talk about perfect timing, right? You've got the right person, the right tool, in the right place, all at the right time. It was like a perfect storm for discovery. And Hubble, this guy was fascinating. A former lawyer, a war vet, he now had the keys to the most powerful eye on Earth. Okay, so to really get what Hubble did next, you need to understand his secret weapon. It was his cosmic measuring tape, and it came in the form of a special kind of star called a Cepheid variable. Now, the idea is actually pretty simple. Imagine you see a light bulb in the distance. If you know it's a 100-watt bulb, you can figure out how far away it is just by how dim it looks, right? Well, Cepheids are like cosmic light bulbs with the wattage stamped on them. Their pulse, how fast they blink, tells you their true brightness. It's an ingenious trick. And this is where the first bombshell drops. Forever, humanity thought our Milky Way galaxy was the entire universe. That was it. But Hubble, he points that massive 100-inch telescope at this little fuzzy patch in the sky called the Andromeda Nebula. And deep inside it, he finds one of those Cepheid variable stars. He does the math, and the answer is just staggering. It was 1,000,000 light years away. It wasn't a cloud inside our galaxy. It was an entirely separate galaxy, an island universe just like our own. In one observation, bam, the universe just got infinitely bigger. But Hubble wasn't done, not even close. His next huge discovery hinged on something called redshift. You've totally experienced this. Think of an ambulance siren. As it races towards you, the pitch is high, right? Then as it passes and moves away, the pitch drops. Light does the exact same thing. If a galaxy is moving away from us, its light waves get stretched out, and that shifts its color towards the red end of the spectrum. The more red shifted it is, the faster it's speeding away. So here's what he did. It was a brilliant, meticulous plan. Step 1. Use those Cepheid variables, his cosmic yardstick, to measure a galaxy's distance. Step 2. Measure its redshift to figure out its speed. And here, he was actually building on the work of another astronomer, Vesto Slipher. Step 3. He just starts plotting them on a graph.
Distance on one axis, speed on the other. For galaxy after galaxy after galaxy. And then step 4, a stunningly clear pattern started to emerge.
And the conclusion was just inescapable. The farther away a galaxy was, the faster it was moving away from us. This meant the universe wasn't a static, unchanging thing. It was expanding. Now, the best way to picture this is to think of raisins in a loaf of bread that's baking. The raisins aren't flying through the dough. The dough itself is expanding, carrying the raisins with it. That's our universe. Space itself is stretching. This was such a massive deal that it got the attention of, you guessed it, Albert Einstein. See, the funny thing is, Einstein's own famous equations of relativity had actually predicted an expanding universe years earlier. But Einstein thought, no way, that can't be right. And he actually added a little fudge factor to his math to hold the universe still. But when he saw Hubble's data, he knew. He traveled all the way to Mount Wilson, looked through the telescope, and admitted that his little fudge factor was the biggest blunder of his career. Wow. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Because that simple, heroic tale of discovery, well, it's not the whole truth. The reality is actually a lot more complex and, honestly, way more fascinating. So, you have the textbook story, right? Edwin Hubble, the hero who proved the universe is expanding. But then, there's the real story. The story of a super cautious scientist who, get this, remained deeply skeptical of the expanding universe idea for his entire life. Yeah, the guy it's named after didn't fully buy it. And it's super important to remember that science is a team sport. Hubble didn't pull this out of a hat. A guy named Vesto Slipher had been measuring those redshifts since way back in 1912. And even more amazing, a Belgian priest and physicist, Georges Lemaitre, had actually proposed the whole theory of an expanding universe and even calculated the rate, 2 years before Hubble published his findings. What Hubble did, and this was absolutely crucial, was provide the solid, undeniable observational evidence that tied it all together. So this leads to the big question, right? If his own data was the smoking gun, why was Hubble himself so skeptical? What was it that he saw that made him hesitate? Why would the man whose name is literally on the law have such deep doubts? Well, his doubts were actually very scientific. For one, his first calculations of the expansion rate made the universe seem younger than the Earth. That's a problem, a big one. 2, the speeds he was measuring were just mind-bogglingly fast, and he found that really unsettling. Plus, other data he looked at, like counting galaxies, just didn't seem to fit the model perfectly. This led him to wonder about other possibilities, even a really out there one. What if light just gets tired over billions of years and loses energy, which makes it look red? A tired light universe instead of an expanding one. So Hubble's story is clearly more complicated than we thought. And you know what? The story of the observatory itself has kept evolving too. For decades, that 100-inch mirror was the absolute king, the pinnacle of astronomical power. Just 100 inches of polished glass that completely changed our view of everything. But check this out. Today, on that same mountain, there's an instrument with the power of a telescope that's 330 meters wide. That's over 100 times bigger. How on earth is that even possible? Well, it's done with a totally mind-bending trick called interferometry. It's called the Chera array. And instead of one huge, impossible mirror, it uses 6 smaller telescopes spread out across the mountain. Then, with insane precision, it combines the light from all 6 of them, making them act like a single, massive, virtual telescope. And the results are just astonishing. The resolution it gets is so sharp, it's like standing in Los Angeles and being able to see a nickel sitting on the ground in New York City. That's not a joke. And with that power, it can do something Hubble would have thought was pure science fiction. It can take actual images of the surfaces of other stars. We can see star spots and other features on distant suns. It's incredible. And that's the coolest part. Mount Wilson isn't just some dusty museum. It is a living, breathing, working observatory. The Chara array is doing cutting-edge science. The old solar tower is still studying our sun. And here's the best part. You can go there. They have public tours, and you can even rent the historic 60-inch or 100-inch telescopes for a night of observing. It's this amazing bridge between a revolutionary past and a really exciting present. So think about it. From nailing down the speed of light to revealing that our galaxy is just one of countless others, all the way to taking pictures of the surfaces of other stars. This one mountain has, again and again, completely expanded our horizons. It just leaves you with one simple but really thrilling question. What will we discover there next?
Thank you, Notebook LM. And before we go on to the things category,
And now it's time for Wilson's in the News.
last week in the news, Professor Stephen Wilson's lab group paper from the University of California, Santa Barbara was published on an innovative way to use a phenomenon referred to as frustration of long-range order in material system to engineer unconventional magnetic states with potential relevance for quantum technologies. Wow, that was a mouthful. Of course, I know all there is to know about quantum physicians and quantum fishing and quantum physicals. But anyway, this quantum technology is a new one to me. So I'll put a link in our show notes for the article that, we can try to read it later. In sports, Wilson Sporting Goods released its 2026 line of staff model irons. In the last couple of years, Wilson golf clubs have come a long way. They are red hot popular now, and I can't wait to swing these new ones. Also in sports, the New York Giants signed Denard Wilson as their defensive coordinator for the team. And in weather, last weekend we had a major storm that blasted about half the United States. It caused almost 20,000 flight cancellations, and it even reached as far south as Wilson, North Carolina. And you know what? This is a perfect segue to our things category, which, for this week, the thing is microphotography, and we hear the story of a man called
Snowflake Man.
Today, we've got a story for you that's as delicate and as tragic as a single snowflake. We're going to explore the incredible life and the strangely poetic end of the man who taught the entire world to see the wonder in winter. You know, every now and then, you hear a story where a person's life and their passion just completely merge into one. This is definitely one of those stories. And it really begins with this simple but profound statement. Yeah, chasing snowflakes. That's literally how he died, in the middle of the very pursuit that gave his life all of its meaning. A man who spent his entire existence just trying to capture the beauty of these tiny, fleeting ice crystals. I mean, you really can't make this stuff up, right? The tragic irony is just, wow. We're talking about Wilson Snowflake Bentley, and he wasn't just some guy who liked winter. No, he was completely consumed by it. And that passion, that lifelong dedication, well, it's what ultimately led to his death. So get this, in his final weeks, his passion just did not quit. We're talking early December 1931. He's 66 years old, and what does he do? He treks 6 miles through a blizzard just to keep taking his pictures of the storm. That walk, that exposure, it gave him pneumonia. And just a few weeks later, on December 23rd, he passed away. And the truly heartbreaking part, it was only a few weeks after his life's greatest work, his book, Snow Crystals, had finally been published. So that's how his story ends. But it kind of makes you ask, right? Who was this guy? Who would risk absolutely everything for a snowflake? Well, his life was this incredible, nearly 50-year-long quest to show us a world of intricate beauty that honestly most people didn't even know existed. His name was Wilson Bentley. And yeah, he definitely earned that nickname, Snowflake. He was a pioneer in the truest sense of the word. Think about it. He wasn't just taking some cool pictures. He was the very first person in all of human history to successfully photograph a single snow crystal. He literally invented a whole new field of science and art, and he was pretty much the only one doing it for decades.
And let me tell you, this was not easy. Not by a long shot. You got to put yourself back in that time period. We're talking late 1800s, early 1900s. There are no digital cameras, no fancy tech. What he was trying to do was, well, it was basically impossible by the standards of the day. Every single photograph was a frantic, freezing race against the clock.
Okay, so just try to imagine his process. First, he's outside in a storm, catching these tiny flakes on a cold blackboard. He finds a perfect one.
Then he's got to race back into a freezing shed, carefully isolate that one crystal, and get it onto a microscope slide. And then, and this is the craziest part, he has just seconds to get the shot with his big, clunky bellows camera before his own breath, just the warmth of him being alive, could make the whole thing just vanish forever. So all that unbelievably painstaking work, was it worth it? Oh, absolutely. Bentley's obsession left behind this legacy that's, literally frozen in time. And it completely changed the way we see the natural world, the way we see winter.
I mean, his impact was just huge. He was the first person ever to give us a visual record of what a snowflake actually looks like. And that famous idea we all know that no two snowflakes are alike, that was him. He's the one who popularized that. His book, Snow Crystals, with over 2,400 of his images, is still a landmark today. And he pretty much single-handedly invented and perfected the art of photographing these tiny ice crystals.
But all of this really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? Why? Why would someone devote nearly 50 years of their life freezing in a shed in Vermont, trying to capture thousands of pictures of something that disappears in a split second? What was driving him? I mean, really think about that for a second. We all have hobbies, we all have passions, but to dedicate your entire life to something so temporary, so fleeting, what could possibly motivate that? Well, the answer, as it turns out, is incredibly simple and just beautiful. And I think it's best to just let him tell you himself. He wrote, "Under the microscope, I found that snowflakes were miracles of beauty, and it seemed a shame that this beauty should not be seen and appreciated by others. That's it. That was the whole reason. He saw something miraculous that no one else could see, and he had to share it with the world. It was that simple."
And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? Bentley found his miracle of beauty in a tiny snowflake. He chased it, he captured it, and he shared it with all of us, even though it ultimately cost him his life. So it kind of makes you wonder, what's the fleeting beauty in your world? What's out there that's worth chasing?
Thanks again, Notebook LM, for that recap. And now it's time for a highly intellectual segment.
Do you want to hear an Uncle Willie joke?
Since there was so much snow falling in Wilson, North Carolina, Uncle Willie asked, "Do you know where polar bears keep their money?" In a snowbank. Well, if you have a good Uncle Willie joke, click that microphone at the lower right corner of our homepage and record your joke so I can play it in the future episodes. Really, please do so. I'm serious. I need a Wilson to click that microphone at the bottom of the page and send me their Uncle Willie jokes. I'm tired of receiving all these death threats. And now our next segment is the Cuz question. The previous question was, do you know what U.S. president, besides Woodrow Wilson, had Wilson in his name? The answer is President Ronald Wilson Reagan. And this week's Cuz question, do you know how many people in the U.S. have Wilson as their first name? Some might call it their forename. Not their last name, but their first name. So here's some hints. There are almost 1 million people in the U.S. with their last name Wilson. But for their first name, Zambia, Africa, they have about half as many Wilsons with their first name as we do here in the United States. But Tanzania, Africa, has about the same number. Kenya, Africa, has about 2 times as many, and so does Ecuador, South America. Uganda, Africa, has 3 times as many people. Colombia, South America, has 4 times as many. And the last one, Brazil has 6 times as many people with their first name of Wilson as the USA does. The answer of how many people in America has the first name of Wilson will be in our free Cuz Buzz newsletter. So go to cuzwilson.com and sign up today. It's free. Well, I hope you've enjoyed my introduction trilogy of 3 episodes for the Cuz Wilson Show. For next week's People segment, we interview a Wilson who was a cheerleader at the University of Arkansas, a national champion bodybuilder, but smart enough to be a high school math teacher. And nearby, where this Wilson lives, is the location for a Civil War battle of Wilson's Creek. So that will be our places segment. And for our things segment, we're going to talk about the Wilson's phalarope, because it's about to be elevated to an endangered species, and we need to go see it while we still can. Thanks for listening. Subscribe or follow, and click the bell so you'll be reminded to listen next Wilson Wednesday for another episode of the Cuz Wilson Show. See ya, cuz!